Hello and welcome to this short introduction on reading critically. The aim of the session is to cover the following: understanding what critical thinking is. So critical thinking is a term that you will hear often used during your academic career. But what is it exactly that your lecturers are referring to when they talk about thinking critically? We will also be considering how to evaluate texts and identifying their strengths and weaknesses. So first of all, what is critical thinking? So critical thinking involves not taking everything you read for granted. This is not to suggest that you disbelieve everything that you read. However, at this level, it is important that you have an element of polite doubt or scepticism. This enables you to highlight potential strengths and weaknesses within the text, but it's also important that you don't just rely on one source of information to inform your own argument. In that sense, it's important to evaluate what you read and relate it to wider information on any given topic. So when you start your reading, there are a couple of questions that you need to start asking of the source material. These are by no means a comprehensive list, but it should help to get you started. So first of all, we have says who, then so what, and what next. So says who relates to the author. What information do we have about the author? Does the information provided lead us to believe that they are a credible source? You will probably be told by your lecturers not to use online sources, for example Wikipedia. Now, there is good reason for that. Wikipedia rarely mentions contributors to editing a source or an article, and in that sense it's quite difficult for us to ascertain whether this is a credible source. We can't check their credentials, we don't know if they are an authority on the subject, and that makes the source far more questionable. We also don't know if they're cited by others, so whether they are cited by others can give us an idea of whether they are a big thinker in the field. We don't know about bias if we don't know who the author is, and bias is a huge area that you can look at in relation to critical thinking, but specifically for the author there are a number of things you can consider. So, is the author sponsored in some way? If they're sponsored, this could impact on how they conduct their study and what they may specifically be looking for in the study. Are they affiliated with a particular organisation or charity or university? Again, these can impact on how they conduct their research, and it's worth considering this. Can you follow up the references to corroborate the information? So your lecturers will expect you to use current, up-to-date information that is relevant to the topic. It's safe to suggest that you expect the same of your sources. If their references aren't recent, then start to consider why that may be. So are there newer references which perhaps contribute something to the topic? So that is an opportunity for you to do wider reading. Next to consider is so what. So what evidence has been provided? So the research itself may be primary or secondary research, and both can be equally relevant depending on the type of research you're doing. Primary will often provide statistics and data, having carried out some kind of survey or study, and secondary research will generally be a review of research that's already been conducted. In this sense, it's worth looking at how good you think the study is. So consider the scale of the study, the scope of the study, the objectivity of the study, and whether you think these things are generalisable. So does the evidence truly back up the conclusions, or are there any gaps? And finally, what next? So how does the information affect what you already know? Does the information you are reading fit in with other sources on the subject? and if not, why not? It may provide an alternative perspective, which is great, but be wary of sources presenting radically different ideas on a topic. It's worth considering why and perhaps giving that some further research. Are there any consequences of the information that further research needs to be conducted? So most good research will indicate where further studies can build on existing research, and again this is something that you can use to identify areas of weakness within the current research in the field.